Few brands carry as sinister a legacy as Volkswagen. What began with manipulation, exploitation, and unimaginable brutality has evolved into one of the most powerful automotive empires on the planet. Today, the Volkswagen Group reigns over luxury marques like Porsche, Lamborghini, Audi, and Bentley. These names evoke elegance and engineering excellence, while the friendly Volkswagen Beetle and the iconic VW bus bring to mind simpler, carefree times. Yet beneath this polished surface lies a chilling past, one intertwined with the horrors of Nazi Germany and the direct influence of Adolf Hitler. This is not just a story of business, but of survival through a regime defined by darkness. Here's everything you need to know about Volkswagen's rise from its shadowy beginnings. In the aftermath of World War I, Germany was left ravaged, its economy shattered by the weight of reparations amounting to an astronomical 132 billion gold marks, equivalent to over $500 billion today. Hyperinflation took hold, driving the country into unparalleled financial despair. People were literally burning cash for warmth because it was cheaper than buying firewood. Amid this turmoil, the Nazi Party seized the moment, exploiting the public's desperation for change. By 1933, Adolf Hitler had risen to power as Germany's chancellor, vowing to restore the nation's lost grandeur. A pivotal part of his blueprint for economic revival included building an extensive highway network, the Autobahn. Yet Germany faced a pressing issue. Most citizens couldn't afford cars. In a bid to fill these new roads, Hitler envisioned the creation of a people's car, or as it was called in German, Volkswagen. Enter Ferdinand Porsche, a revered engineer, renowned for crafting some of Germany's most celebrated automobiles. Hitler personally enlisted Porsche to design a compact, budget-friendly family car that would dominate the Autobahn. This vehicle had to be light, economical, and comfortably seat 2 adults and 3 children. Little did they know, this ambitious vision would give rise to one of the most recognizable cars ever made, the Volkswagen Beetle. In 1938, as the Wolfsburg Volkswagen factory neared completion, Hitler's vision took an even darker turn. When World War II broke out in 1939, Volkswagen was repurposed. No longer a family car factory, it became a war machine. The goal? Vehicles built to transport 3 men and a machine gun, and Wolfsburg became a fortress of terror. Soviet and Polish prisoners of war were dragged into the factory, toiling in appalling conditions. And the horror only grew. Under Nazi oversight, concentration camps sprouted near the factory, housing thousands of prisoners, many of them Jewish, forced into slave labor with little food, no warmth, and barely any rest. Ferdinand Porsche, a fervent supporter of Nazi ideology, implemented a brutal hierarchy. Scandinavians were given slightly more rations than Poles more than Russians, while Jewish prisoners suffered the worst fate. But these atrocities were only the beginning. Perhaps the most haunting chapter of Volkswagen's wartime past is that of the Kinderheim. In 1943, under a cruel change in Nazi policy, pregnant laborers were no longer sent home. They were forced to give birth in Volkswagen's Grimm nursery, while they returned to work in the factory. But this was no sanctuary, no place of care or compassion. It quickly turned into a death camp for infants. Unlike the concentration camps, the Kinderheim was run by Volkswagen itself. The mothers, lied to, they believed their babies would be cared for. But instead, these innocent lives were trapped in a nightmare of neglect, infestation, and malnutrition. Cockroaches, lice, maggots. Children starved and suffered from untreated infections. By the time the war ended, up to 400 infants had perished within its walls. An unspeakable tragedy that was nearly erased from history. In 1945, the Allied forces marched into Germany. The Volkswagen factory lay in ruins, Bombed into near oblivion, its future seemingly sealed. But then came Major Ivan Hurst, a British officer with a mission: rebuild. Revive this broken machine of war into a symbol of peace. Against overwhelming odds, Hurst transformed the shattered remnants of the factory into a functioning automotive line, producing cars for the British Army. From the brink of total collapse, Hurst resurrected Volkswagen. Under his guidance, it re-emerged as a company poised for a complete reinvention. The Type 2 van, later known as the VW bus, became an icon of counterculture, while the Volkswagen Beetle was reborn, from its ties to Hitler to a symbol of peace in post-war Europe. This remarkable transformation mirrored Germany's own rebirth, a story of a tainted past turning into a thriving future. The post-war success wasn't enough for Volkswagen. No, they had bigger plans. By the 1960s, the German government had reduced its stake, and Volkswagen unleashed its hunger for expansion. The company began devouring its competition: Audi, Bentley, Lamborghini, Bugatti, all brought under Volkswagen's ever-growing empire. And yet, with power comes conflict. Behind closed doors, a corporate power struggle brewed as Porsche, the very entity that once designed Volkswagen's first car, made a bold attempt to take over the company. This battle for control would become one of the most intense corporate showdowns in history, with Volkswagen barely escaping defeat, only to grow even stronger. By 2015, Volkswagen had risen to the top of the global automotive world, but beneath the surface, deception festered. That year, Volkswagen's grand illusion came crashing down in the form of Dieselgate, one of the biggest corporate scandals of the century. The company, which had long boasted about its clean diesel engines, was exposed for embedding software that cheated emissions tests. The scale of the fraud was staggering. Over 11 million cars were spewing toxic pollutants at levels far above legal limits. The fallout? Devastating. Volkswagen faced over $35 billion in fines and legal battles, their pristine reputation tarnished in an instant. Volkswagen's story, from its birth in Nazi Germany to its rise as a global automotive powerhouse, is a tale marked by both shadows and triumphs. Though it has given the world some of the most beloved cars in history, its dark past is forever entwined with exploitation, cruelty, and deception. And yet, each time Volkswagen has fallen, it has found a way to rise again. As the company moves forward, its legacy is one that serves as a stark reminder. Global corporations can rebuild, but their past will always follow them.